Thank you for joining me here today. I want to say that I saw you talking on the UCPR broadcast, and everything you talked about regarding to 211 and your involvement with the community, I was very inspired by. And so I want to give you this opportunity to not only share your experience and how you got to where you are, but also everything that is absolutely important to share about what you're involved with now.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's it's a great topic. I can go on for hours about 211, Eric. So watch out.
Well, then let's start off where, if no one's ever really heard about or known about it.
Well, one of our biggest challenges is that we need more and more people to know about it. The idea of the number is it's the number you can call if you don't know where to turn. And so some funding was made available for the infrastructure to get the computers, the whole phone system, all that kind of thing. But there never was any money, and never has been any money since then, for awareness campaigns. So as a result, any opportunity I can have to talk about 211, I'm happy to do so. The problem is that the world is really complicated, and it really is a maze sometimes. So, we've all gone through the experience of calling that, oh no, don't call here, call there. Oh no, you got the wrong place. Instead of that, you call 211. Our staff are trained to do an assessment, find out what the person needs, and we then connect them to the service that they are looking for. And we also do chat, text, and email. So you can communicate with us, whatever, depending on your generation, how you may want to communicate with us, those are all available. Our job is to get people connected to the help they need. However, which door they come through is irrelevant. And it helps society, because as soon as somebody is dealing with a problem, catastrophic potentially, the better it will be for them, but it better be for the service that we have, so they get the help, deal with that challenge, and get on with their life. Talking about chat and text, we were on a chat with a young woman who I presume was probably under 18 years of age, and she was chatting with us from a library in the children's section, and she was kind of hiding, trying to get away from her pimp. And in fact, what had happened, she'd been mad at her parents, and she'd left on the street, and one thing led to the next. But she said, he's told me that he will kill me and he'll kill my parents if I say anything. So we talked to her, and we contact the police, we contact Children's Aid. They end up going there, and they pull her out of that situation. So you can appreciate, for the community navigator, it is a tough job. I've become a bit of a passionate nut about 211. I tell all my friends about it in different groups that I'm involved in the community. And I'm not leaving this job till 211 comes into your mind just as quickly as 911. My chair quite rightly said, John, you may be here for a long time, but that's what we're here for. And that's why having the one number, 211, they can save people a lot of headaches. Just before COVID, and just as the bus station in Ottawa was just about still open, we get a call from a woman talking to our community navigator, Celine, and saying, I've just arrived here in Ottawa. I used all my money to get on the bus to come from another city where I was being physically abused by my partner. And Celine can hear a baby crying. She says, have you got a baby with you? Oh, I have 2-year-old triplets, and I have no place to go. So, holy smoke. So we know the drill. So we call one of the agencies that do this, and the agency said, we'll have somebody at the bus station in 15 minutes. So Celine stayed on the line with the woman until the person got there, identified themselves, and they took her away. So it's funny how the system works. About 4 months later, I was making a presentation to the social services staff at the City of Ottawa, and I told that story. Yeah, that night we got a call because the shelter needed 2 more cribs for the triplets. They only had 1 crib. So the system actually worked. So that's the kind of call, which is very sad call, but we were able to help. And sometimes we can't find a solution, and that is most frustrating to us, but that speaks to the gaps that there are in our system that need to be fixed. People really appreciate that there is a person they're talking to. It calls about loneliness that we got during COVID went right off the charts, because people were so isolated that, once in a while you might get a man that was frustrated or a woman frustrated, and they start crying. So I'm getting people crying, 2-3 times every week because they can't find a way to deal with their financial insecurity, or they don't have any place to live. The shelters are all full. The other thing is that the pay is terrible. We haven't had any increase in funding from the ministry for 10 years. There was a lot of extra funding. We got extra funding during COVID so we could hire more staff, but that all ended about a year ago, with a little bit over this past year till end of March. We told government that it was going to be more difficult this year than it was going to be, compounded by the increase in inflation. And what we are is sort of the canary in the mine shaft as to the trends of what's happening out there. It's very real, and it's getting worse. It's very tough. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time on is talking with my staff, and we have regular meetings. Okay, how are you doing? We have difficult calls. They have recovery time. If somebody crying at the end of the line and you don't have a solution, that's not an easy job. I mean, I don't really know whether, Eric, I could do the job myself. You have to be empathetic, and you have to be calm. You have to be curious. And on the other side, on the data side, I don't know whether I could do that job, because their job every day is to look at each record, see if it's up to date, contact people to update it, okay, add new services that come along. If you know of services in your community, ask them if they're listed with us, because if they want referrals, that's one of the best ways they can get referrals if we have them in our database. So our goal is to be the highest quality possible. And that quality starts actually not with the community navigators that are doing the chats and the calls. It's with our data specialists, because 85% of our records must be updated annually. We also have a target of answering the phone within 90 seconds. Now, during COVID, that kind of got blown out the window because our calls went up 150%. Interesting enough, we're changing. We are morphing, I would put it, because of what we see that's out there. Paramedics, when they go and do community calls that they're now doing, which is wonderful, going into, say, a senior couple that may be at risk, they'll go in and see how they're doing. If they see that, they'll notice there's no food in the fridge. They'll say, okay, will you consent to us having 211 call you? And they actually put it on their iPad and they send a message to us, and we call a person. So it's a call out, not a call coming in. Currently, we don't have the capacity to do longitudinal tracking. But with this new called community information engagement, we're going to be able to track longitudinally, so that when the person's number comes in and the navigator is answering it, it's going to pop on the screen right away. They called this, and about this. Okay, we don't know any other information. We just know that they called. We don't, because it's absolutely confidential, the work that we do. And then you can classify, or just, you'll have, family health teams. You'll have a whole series of other people that are all connected into that information. So that's the kind of thing that I really love about what we're doing now, is because we're trying to be innovative and creative so that we can really help people more. Mental health is the other big issue. And as you know, there's been a lot of concern about police going to deal with mental health calls. Calls initially were being referred by 911 to 211, but now they've been promoting 211. Very interestingly, the number that got referred to emergency was very low, because they got there and they were able to deal with that. And the other part, that why it fits so well, many of those people in those situations have other needs. 211 can help, because that's what we're trained to do. So it actually makes sense. And it's really not what the police job anyway. So many things that the police get called about on 911 is nothing to do with police. And that's why our partnership with 911 is really important, because they like that 211 exists, because the calls that can come to them, that aren't urgent 911, get an ambulance, there's a fire. They can just say, well, here, we'll just transfer you to 211. And we can then, answer those questions.
I can understand why you're so passionate about this, being raised, wanting to give back, and being involved in some element of the system. And then you're at this crucial moment of innovation and experimentation and trying to make it that we can help more people who need it. Not only get the awareness out there, but updating the ways in which people can be contacted and assisted. And then also the redirection of people and resources, so that way their needs can be better met.
It really is talking about bringing all the social services and support services to work better in a more cohesive manner. Term in the business is social determinants of health. You can see all the controversy about safe drug sites and so on, and some people believe these people are not criminals. They do criminal things because they're trying to get money, because they're addicted, but it's a health issue, and a lot of times it's a mental health issue. And the way to do that is if you can work with them and have everybody working together to break that vicious cycle. That's what's important. Jail is not going to help them at all, okay? And the point I make to those people, the fiscally conservative folks, which I'm one myself, I'm a fiscal conservative, but is that this will actually save the system money. Because the sooner somebody gets help, sooner they can deal with those issues, sooner they're going to recover, and the less they may call on services. To me, it makes sense. And the whole idea of, well, somebody's done something wrong, throw away the key. There but for the grace of God go I. And it's uncomfortable sometimes in those circumstances. But when people say, well, we want to reduce this because if you put people have benefits, then they're lazy and they won't work. Now, there's always going to be, no matter where you are, a small percentage of people that are going to be like that. But I've spoken many times about 2-in-1 in community housing situations. They would like to be able to find a job that could pay them enough, not rely on those things. And that's the vast majority. And I remind people of that.
What I would like to see take place is them feeling a sense of pride that they're taking part, they're contributing to people who are down and out having a second chance.
Yep.
That they see it as they are contributors and they can feel some moral delight in the fact that they take part and support a society that helps those in need.
Yeah. And the other thing I've learned in the last almost 6 years in this work, our system would collapse in terms of social services without volunteers and agencies that do this work. But with 2-in-1, I have to say that I've one request: be a champion of 2-in-1. Tell anybody you know, call 2-in-1 if you don't know where to turn, or go to Ontario, 2in1ontario.ca, and you can get the chat or the text.
Well, I'm very grateful for this conversation, because prior to this, my only exposure to 2-in-1 was seeing a placard on the side of a road and maybe some paper being handed out or a flyer from time to time throughout the ages. So it wasn't something that was really prevalent until I saw your presentation at the United Counties of Prescott Russell. I also think the outreach that you guys are doing, the innovation and the different tools that you're using, aligning with different institutions, is a wonderful evolution. And I really want to applaud everybody who's involved for taking that courage and that step forward, because I think it's going in the right direction. And I definitely want more people to understand how 2-in-1 can help them and anybody else that needs help.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me.